No nanny lasted a month with the rich businessman's triplets, until she arrived and said, Michael Anderson was desperate. 12 nannies in 6 months was a record he never imagined having. His construction company was thriving, but at home, chaos had reigned since he became a widower. The triplets, Ethan, Nathan, and William, seemed to have made a pact to drive away anyone who tried to care for them. That was when Sarah Mitchell rang the doorbell of the mansion in the Upper East Side neighborhood of New York City. She knew exactly what she would find. 3 5-year-old boys destroying the living room while their father tried unsuccessfully to control them. What she didn't expect were the words that changed everything coming from her own lips. I'll take the job, but on one condition. I'll treat them as if they were my own children. Michael froze. The words echoed through the room, even interrupting the boys' screams. How could this simple woman, with her modest clothes and hair tied in an unpretentious bun, have the courage to set conditions? The last 12 professionals had fled in less than a month each, and now this stranger wanted to negotiate. Ethan, the most mischievous of the 3, dropped the vase he was about to knock over. Nathan stopped scribbling on the white wall with an orange crayon. William let go of the remote control he was using as a projectile. All 3 turned simultaneously, as if they'd heard something extraordinary. Do you understand their... Michael began, but Sarah interrupted him. Hurting children, I know. She knelt down to their level, eye to eye. You 3 must be very angry, aren't you? The triplets exchanged glances. No nanny had ever spoken to them like that before. They all came in yelling, complaining about the mess, threatening to tell their father. This woman had something different in her eyes. We don't want a nanny, Ethan shouted, crossing his arms. Great, because I'm not a nanny, Sarah replied calmly. I'm Sarah, and if you let me, I'd like to be your friend. Nathan, always the most observant, took a step closer. Daddy said you came here to work. That's true. But working to take care of you is different from working in an office. It means I'll be here every day. I'll get to know the real you. I'll learn what you like, what scares you, and I'll be here when you need me. William, the youngest by a few minutes, whispered, The last nanny said we were impossible. Sarah's heart ached. You're not impossible. You're special. 3 unique people who were born together and are going through a very hard time. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. Michael watched the scene in silence. In 5 minutes, this woman had gotten more attention from his sons than he had in weeks. He didn't know whether to feel relief or a pang of jealousy. Why do you want to take care of us? Ethan asked, still suspicious. Sarah took a deep breath. That was always the hardest question. Because I understand how hard it is when someone important leaves and never comes back. And I know you're not acting out because you're mean. You're testing to see if I'll leave too. The honesty in her voice struck something deep inside the boys. Nathan took another step closer. William bit his lower lip, a habit he had when nervous. Ethan kept his defensive stance, but the anger in his eyes had faded. So, Ethan hesitated. You promise you won't leave? I can't promise that, Sarah said, and Michael tensed. That was exactly the kind of answer that usually made the boys lose it. But I can promise you that if I ever need to leave, I'll talk to you first, explain why, and help you understand it's not your fault. The silence that followed was unlike any that had filled the house in recent months. It wasn't tense, heavy with the threat of an outburst. It was a silence of consideration, of children processing words that finally made sense to them. Nathan was the first to move. He walked over to Sarah and, to everyone's surprise, including his own, held out his small hand. Okay, you can try to be our friend. Ethan and William exchanged glances. It was always like this. Nathan made the decision first, and they followed. But this time, for the first time in a long while, they genuinely agreed with their brother. But if you yell at us, we'll make you cry, William warned, trying to keep some bravado in his voice. Sarah smiled. Fair. And if you do something dangerous, I'll get worried and might have to speak more firmly. Deal? The 3 of them nodded. Michael could hardly believe what he was witnessing. 6 months of chaos, 12 nannies driven away, and now his children were negotiating terms of coexistence like little adults. Mr. Anderson, Sarah stood and turned to him. "I need to discuss some practical matters with you." "Of course. Boys, go wash your hands for snack time." "But we didn't finish drawing on the wall," Ethan protested. "Oh yes." Sarah looked at the colorful mural stretching across the wall. "This is a very interesting piece of art. Can you show me what each color means?" Michael expected her to complain about the mess, to demand they clean it up immediately. Instead, she approached the wall as if she were in a gallery. "Orange is the sun," Nathan explained, pointing at the scribbles. "Blue is the rain that makes Daddy sad." "And green?" Sarah asked. "It's the trees in the garden where Mummy used to play with us," William whispered. Michael felt his eyes grow damp. He had no idea the drawings held meaning. To him, it was just property destruction. "That's beautiful. Did you know there are special places for making big drawings like this? If you'd like, I can get you really big paper, or maybe we can pick one wall just for art. What do you think?" "It can be my bedroom wall," Ethan exclaimed. "Mine too," Nathan said. "And mine," William added. "We'll see about that later. For now, how about we wash those colorful hands?" The boys ran to the bathroom, and for the first time in months, Michael heard laughter coming from that direction instead of shouts or the sound of things breaking. "Mrs. Mitchell," he began when they were alone, "I need to be honest. My children are difficult, very difficult. They've broken important things, painted the neighbor's dog, poured detergent into the pool." "Mr. Anderson, may I ask you something? When was the last time you played with them?" The question caught him off guard. "I work a lot. I have a company to run. They have everything they need, toys, video games, swimming lessons. That's not what I asked. When was the last time you sat on the floor with them and just played?" Michael opened his mouth to answer, but realized he couldn't remember. Since Jennifer had left 2 years ago, his life had been nothing but work, meetings, more work, and then coming home exhausted to find a new report of destruction. "I don't know," he admitted. "I don't know how to play with them. When I was a child, my father didn't play with me either. He worked, provided for the family, and I learned that's how men took care of their families." "And did it work for you? Feeling like your father was present in your life?" The question stung. Michael remembered the loneliness of his childhood, the weekends spent waiting for a father who never stopped working, the constant feeling of not being enough of a priority. "No," he confessed. "I always missed him." "Then maybe it's time to break that cycle." The boys returned from the bathroom, still chatting excitedly about where they could draw more pictures. Sarah guided them to the kitchen and, without ceremony, began preparing a simple snack, bread with jelly and chocolate milk. "Do you like helping in the kitchen?" she asked. "We can't touch the stove," said Nathan. "Or the oven," added William. "And not the knives either," finished Ethan. "Of course not. But you can help me with other things. Nathan, can you get the glasses? Ethan, do you know where the jelly is? William, can you reach the spoons?" Each boy was given a simple but important task. Michael watched, fascinated, as they cooperated, how they seemed normal. Just normal kids helping prepare a normal snack. "Daddy, do you want to eat with us?" asked William, surprising everyone. Michael checked his watch. He had a call scheduled in 15 minutes. "I need to..." "Daddy," Sarah said softly, "can the call wait 15 minutes? He hesitated. It was an important call about a new contract, but the hopeful eyes of his sons disarmed him. "Yes, it can." The 4 of them sat at the kitchen table. Michael couldn't remember the last time he'd eaten in the kitchen. He usually had his meals at the office or during business meetings. The conversation flowed naturally, with Sarah asking the boys about their likes, favorite games, and fears. "Ethan's afraid of the dark," Nathan shared. "I am not," Ethan protested, turning red. "Everyone's afraid of something," Sarah said calmly. "I'm afraid of spiders." "Really?" William asked, impressed. "Really? And you know what I've learned? When we talk about our fears, they get smaller." "Daddy's afraid of flying," Nathan said, looking at his father. Michael was surprised. He didn't know his sons had noticed his discomfort with air travel. "That's true, but I have to travel for work, so I've learned to deal with it." "How?" Ethan asked, genuinely curious. I take deep breaths and think of the three of you. It calms me down. It was a simple moment, but Michael felt something he hadn't in a long time, a connection with his sons. They were looking at him not as a distant authority figure, but as a real person, with fears and feelings. When the snack was over, Sarah stood up. "How about we show Daddy your rooms? I'm sure he'd love to see where you sleep." Michael blinked, confused. "But I know their rooms." "When was the last time you went into their rooms? Not to scold them or look for something broken, but just to see how they've arranged their things." Another question he couldn't answer. The boys ran ahead, excited to show their spaces. Michael discovered things he hadn't known. Ethan collected rocks he found in the yard. Nathan had hidden all his drawings of their mother under his bed, and William slept every night hugging one of Jennifer's shirts. "They miss their mother a lot," Sarah observed quietly as the boys played. "I know I do too, but I don't know how to help them with that. I don't even know how to help myself. Have you ever considered therapy for all of you?" "Therapy is for people who can't solve their own problems." Sarah looked at him with an expression somewhere between understanding and frustration. "Mr. Anderson, losing your wife and the mother of your children is one of the hardest things a family can go through. Needing help to cope isn't weakness, it's wisdom." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. That first week was a constant test. The triplets, true experts at driving caregivers away, pulled out every trick in their playbook. They replaced the sugar with salt in Sarah's coffee, hid her keys, released crickets into her makeshift room downstairs. But Sarah reacted completely differently from the others. When she tasted the salty coffee, she made a dramatic face that made them laugh and said, "Wow, what kind of special seasoning is this? Did you invent a new recipe?" When she couldn't find her keys, she calmly sat down and said, "Well, looks like I'll have to stay here until they turn up. Too bad. I was planning to go out for ice cream." The keys reappeared in 5 minutes. When she discovered the crickets, instead of screaming, she grabbed a jar and started carefully catching them. "How interesting. You brought little musicians to keep me company. But they must miss the garden, right? Let's take them back home." Each unexpected reaction left the boys more confused and, strangely, more respectful. They were used to yelling, threats, desperate calls to their father. Sarah simply turned every prank into a chance for conversation. Michael came home on Wednesday, expecting to find Sarah packing her bags like all the others. Instead, he found her in the garden with the three boys, planting flowers in small pots. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Each of us is planting a special flower," Nathan explained. "Mine is for Mom." "Mine is for Dad," said William. "And mine is for myself," Ethan added, "because Sarah said we need to take care of ourselves too." Michael sat on the grass beside them, staining his expensive suit. "And what flower did you pick for me?" "Sunflower," said William, "because you work too much and need to remember to look at the sun sometimes." The simplicity and wisdom of his 5-year-old's observation touched him deeply. "What about you, Sarah? Did you plant a flower too?" "Violets. They're delicate but very resilient. They survive even in tough conditions and always find a way to bloom." That night, for the first time in months, Michael had dinner at home. Sarah had prepared a simple meal, but the boys were well behaved, chatting about their day, asking questions about their father's work. "How was your meeting today, Dad?" Nathan asked. "Good. We're building a new office tower in Midtown." "How many floors?" Ethan wanted to know. 22. "Wow," the three exclaimed in unison. "And will people live there?" William asked. "No, they'll work there. It's a commercial building." "Like where you work?" "Similar, yes." For a few minutes, Michael managed to forget all his problems and simply talk with his sons about his day. It was a strange and good feeling at the same time. After dinner, Sarah suggested Michael help with bedtime. "The boys like a story before bed." "I don't know how to tell stories," he admitted. "It doesn't have to be from a book. It could be about when you were a kid, about work, anything." Michael found himself sitting on the edge of Ethan's bed, with Nathan and William squeezing in to listen too. He started hesitantly, talking about what New York City was like when he was a child, how the streets were different, how he used to play marbles with friends. The boys listened, fascinated. To them, it was amazing to imagine their father as a child, playing, mischievous, normal. "Did you ever draw on walls like us?" Ethan asked. Michael laughed. "Once I drew a car on my bedroom wall. My dad was really mad." "And what happened?" "He made me clean the entire wall and grounded me for a week." "That's a long time," William remarked. "It is. That's why I don't want you boys to go through the same thing, but I also can't let you destroy the house." "Sarah said we can pick just one wall to draw on," Nathan chimed in. "She really said that?" "Yes, and that we can help paint it however we want." Michael looked over at Sarah, who was leaning against the doorframe. "Is that true? It's a way to channel their creativity constructively, and maybe you could join in too. When was the last time you painted something just for fun?" Another question he didn't have an answer to. His adult life had become so focused on productivity, profit, and responsibilities that he'd completely forgotten the concept of doing something purely for enjoyment. On Friday of the first week, the first real test came. Ethan had a meltdown when Sarah told him he couldn't have ice cream before lunch. It was the kind of tantrum that used to make nannies call Michael, begging him to come home immediately. Sarah simply sat on the floor beside Ethan as he screamed and kicked the air. She didn't try to calm him, didn't yell back, didn't threaten him. She just stayed there, present. "I know you're really angry," she said when his screams quieted slightly. "It must be so frustrating to want something and not be able to have it right away." Ethan looked at her with teary eyes, surprised that someone was trying to understand his anger instead of just making it stop. "I want ice cream now," he sobbed. "I know. And after lunch you can have some, but right now your body needs real food for energy." "I hate real food." "It's okay to hate it. You don't have to like it. But you do need to eat a little to grow strong like Daddy." The tantrum lasted a few more minutes, but it was different. Ethan wasn't fighting Sarah anymore. He was expressing his frustration while she patiently stayed by his side. Nathan and William watched with interest. They were used to their brother's meltdowns causing complete chaos. This time there was understanding, patience, and then resolution. When Michael came home that night, the boys ran to him with unprecedented excitement. "Daddy, Sarah's still here," William shouted. "And she said she's staying," Nathan added. "And we didn't make her cry even once," Ethan finished, visibly proud of himself. Michael glanced at Sarah, who was smiling softly in the kitchen. "How was the day?" "Interesting," she replied. "We had a few challenges, but nothing we couldn't work through by talking." "Ethan had a meltdown," Nathan said, ever the observer. "But it was a small one," Ethan quickly corrected, "and I apologized after." Michael could hardly believe it. For months, Ethan's tantrums had lasted hours and left the entire house in lockdown. "How did you handle it?" "Sarah said it's okay to be angry sometimes," Ethan explained, "but that I can use words instead of screaming." "And does it work?" "Sometimes," Ethan shrugged. "I'm still learning." His son's simple honesty struck Michael. When was the last time someone had admitted they were still learning to control their emotions? He struggled with it daily himself, especially since becoming a widower. That night, after the boys were asleep, Michael and Sarah had their first truly deep conversation. "How do you do it?" he asked. "How do you stay patient when they're being impossible?" "They're not being impossible. They're children who've suffered a devastating loss and don't know how to cope. Everything they do is a disguised cry for help. Misbehavior is a cry for help. Of course. When they break something, they're saying, pay attention to me. When they make a mess, they're saying, my life is a mess and I don't know how to organize it. When they test limits, they're asking, are you going to abandon me too?" Michael had never thought about his children's behavior this way. To him, mischief was simply bad manners that needed correcting. "And how did you learn this?" Sarah hesitated. It was the first time someone had asked her this directly. "From my own experience. I lost my son when he was 7, leukemia. During his treatment, I learned a lot about how children express fear, anger, and sadness. The silence that followed was heavy. Michael hadn't expected this revelation. "Sarah, I didn't know, I'm so sorry. It was 15 years ago. The pain never fully goes away, but I've learned to live with it. And I've learned that caring for other children helps me honor my Jacob's memory. That's why you're so good with them. Maybe. Or maybe it's because I understand what it's like to feel lost and need someone who won't give up on you. Michael felt a lump in his throat. Do you think I'm a bad father? I think you're a father doing the best you can with the tools you have, but maybe it's time to find new tools. What do you mean? When was the last time you took a whole day just for the boys? No phone, no meetings, just the four of you? I can't just stop working. Yes, you can. For one day. The world won't end if you're unavailable for 24 hours. The idea seemed absurd to Michael. His construction company depended on him. Clients expected immediate responses. Projects had tight deadlines. What if something important happens? Then it'll happen, and you'll handle it the next day. But your sons will remember forever the day their father chose to be present. By the second week, Sarah had implemented more significant changes in the household routine. She set fixed times for meals, play, homework, and rest. The boys resisted at first. They were used to chaos, but soon discovered that predictability was comforting. Michael noticed the difference immediately. When he came home, instead of finding destruction and shouting, he found his sons engaged in constructive activities. Sometimes they were doing homework, sometimes helping Sarah in the kitchen, sometimes just playing quietly. How did you get them to listen? He asked one evening. It's not obedience, it's cooperation. They helped create the rules so they feel responsible for following them. They helped? Of course. I sat down with all three and asked how they'd like our home to run, what time to wake up, what kind of breakfast they preferred, when they wanted to play, when they wanted to rest. Obviously, some adjustments were needed, but they feel heard. It was a revolutionary concept for Michael. In his childhood, rules were imposed by adults, and children simply obeyed. The idea that 5-year-olds could have a say in decisions about their own lives had never occurred to him. And when they don't want to cooperate? We talk about why the rule exists. For example, when Ethan didn't want to brush his teeth, I explained how teeth work, why they need cleaning, and what happens if we don't take care of them. It wasn't an order, it was education. And it worked? It worked because he understood the reason. Children are far more reasonable than we think when we treat them with respect. On Tuesday of the second week, something happened that changed everything. Michael came home early due to a cancelled meeting and heard voices from the boys' room. He quietly went upstairs to investigate and found Sarah sitting on the floor with the 3 boys gathered around her. Ethan was crying, Nathan was comforting him, and William was holding a crumpled drawing. What happened? Asked Michael from the doorway. Ethan was missing Mom, explained Nathan. Then he got sad and tore up the drawing he made for her. Michael stepped closer. On the floor were pieces of paper with colorful drawings, a family of 5, father, mother, and 3 boys. Can I see? He asked softly. Ethan nodded between sobs. Michael carefully gathered the pieces. The drawing was simple but clearly made with love. The mother figure was at the center, smiling, with her arms open to embrace the whole family. It's a very beautiful drawing, said Michael, feeling his eyes well up. Why did you tear it? Because she won't see it, sobbed Ethan. I draw for her, but she'll never see it. Michael's heart broke. His children were creating art for a mother who was no longer there to appreciate it. It was a reality too cruel for 5-year-olds to process. Ethan, he said gently, kneeling beside his son, can I tell you a secret? The boy looked at him with red, teary eyes. Okay. I miss Mom too. Every day. And sometimes I get so sad I feel like tearing things up too. Ethan seemed surprised. You get sad like us? I do. Very sad. But you know what I've found? When I do things Mom loved, I feel closer to her. Like what? Michael thought. Mom loved when you drew pictures. Remember how she always put your drawings on the fridge? The 3 boys nodded. So when you draw, even if she's not here to see it, I think she'd be really happy to know you're still doing the thing that made her proudest. But she can't see it, insisted Ethan. Not with her eyes, but she can see it in her heart. And in mine too when I look at your drawings. It was the first time Michael had spoken openly about Jennifer with the kids since the funeral. Sarah watched in silence, sensing an important barrier was being broken. "Dad," said Nathan hesitantly, "do you keep our drawings?" Michael had to admit he didn't. Usually the drawings were scattered around the house until the cleaner threw them away. "I don't, but I'd like to start. Would you give me some to put in my office?" The boy's eyes lit up. "Really? Really? That way, when I'm working and missing you, I can look at the drawings and remember how important you are to me." Ethan stopped crying. "So can I draw another one for Mom?" "Yes, and let's tape this one back together too. It's too beautiful to throw away." The four spent the next hour taping the torn drawing. It wasn't perfect. The tape lines were visible. Some pieces didn't fit exactly. But somehow that made it even more special. It was a drawing about family, repaired by a family working together. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. That night, after the boys were asleep, Michael and Sarah talked about what had happened. "It was the first time I've talked about Jennifer with them since..." He couldn't finish the sentence. "Since the funeral." "Yes. I thought talking about her would make them sadder." "And what happened when you did?" Michael reflected. "They seemed relieved, like they had permission to miss her." "Exactly. Children need to know it's okay to miss someone, that it's normal to talk about people we love who aren't with us anymore. When we avoid the subject, they think they shouldn't talk about their feelings. But it's so hard." "It is. But being sad together is less lonely than being sad alone." Michael nodded, feeling the weight of truth in those words. Over the past 2 years, he had tried to shield his children from his own pain, but ended up isolating all of them. "Sarah, can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course. How did you cope with the loss of your son? How did you manage to move forward?" Sarah was silent for a moment. "I didn't move forward. I moved with it. Jacob's pain goes with me wherever I go. But I've learned that carrying this pain doesn't mean carrying only sadness. I also carry the love, the good memories, everything he taught me. And isn't it too heavy? Sometimes, but you know what I've found? When I share that weight by caring for other children, it becomes lighter. Not smaller, but lighter." "Is that why you chose to work with children?" "It wasn't a rational choice, it was a need of the heart. After Jacob was gone, I was lost. I didn't know how to live without caring for someone. A friend suggested I work as a temporary nanny, just to have some income. I discovered that caring for other children helped keep alive the part of me that was a mother." Michael felt deep respect for this woman. She had turned her greatest pain into her greatest strength. "Your children are lucky to have you. I'm the lucky one to have them. They teach me every day how it's possible to love again after loss." By the 3rd week, the household routine was established, but Michael still struggled with his own involvement in his children's lives. He came home after they were asleep and left before they woke up. Sarah began confronting him about it. "Mr. Anderson, may I suggest something?" "Of course. How about you have lunch at home tomorrow? The boys eat at 12:30. You could arrive at 12:15 and eat with them. I have a meeting at 2. Where is it?" "On Wall Street. That's 20 minutes from home. You can have lunch with them and still be on time." Michael hesitated. He hadn't had lunch at home he couldn't even remember the last time. "But I usually have lunch with clients. And tomorrow you can have lunch with your sons just once." There was something in the way she said, "just once," that made him realize this wasn't a casual request. It was a test. She was testing his priorities. "All right, I'll try." "Not try, you will. The boys will be waiting." The next day at 12:10, Michael parked in the garage. It felt strange being home at this hour. The house seemed different during the day, more alive, warmer. The boys were overjoyed to see him. "Daddy, you came to have lunch with us," William shouted, running to hug him. "Sarah made pasta," Nathan said. "And there's salad too, but you don't have to eat it if you don't want to," Ethan added, whispering as if sharing a secret. Michael laughed. "Why don't I have to eat salad?" "Because you're an adult. Adults get to choose." And you don't? We get to choose between eating a little or very little, Ethan explained seriously. But we have to eat at least a little. The childish negotiation amused him. Over lunch, the boys told him about their morning. They had helped Sarah make the pasta, watered the plants, and done a simple experiment with baking soda and vinegar. Experiment? Michael asked. Sarah said it's science, Nathan said excitedly. You mix the white powder with the clear liquid, and it turns into giant foam. And why do you do that? To learn how things work, William said. It's like when you build buildings. You have to know how to mix the right things. The simple but accurate comparison struck Michael. His children were learning basic chemistry through play, making connections to his work. And did you like the experiment? We loved it, they said in unison. Tomorrow we're going to plant beans in cotton. Why? To see how plants grow, explained Ethan. Sarah said it's just like when you build things. First you have to prepare the ground, then plant the seed, then take care of it every day until it becomes something big and beautiful. Michael looked at Sarah, impressed. She was teaching basic science to 5-year-olds using analogies they could understand, connecting it to familiar things. The lunch lasted 40 minutes, but it was enough time for Michael to realize how much he was missing. The natural conversation, the children's discoveries, the simple joy of sharing a family meal. When he got up to leave, Ethan asked, "Are you going to have lunch with us again?" "I'll try." "When?" The direct question caught him off guard. "How about tomorrow?" The faces of all three lit up. "Promise?" "I promise." And he kept his word. And the next day too. Within a week, having lunch at home had become part of his routine. Clients adjusted, meetings were rescheduled, and Michael discovered that an hour away from the office midday not only didn't hurt his work, but made him more productive in the afternoon. But the real change began when Sarah suggested something bolder. "Mr. Anderson, when was the last time you took a weekend just for the boys?" "What do you mean?" "Friday night to Sunday night. No work, no phone, no commitments. Just the 4 of you." "That's impossible. I have obligations." "What obligations are more important than your children?" The question irritated him. "It's not about importance. It's about responsibility. I have a company to run." "And how many employees do you have?" 26. "None of them can handle responsibilities for 2 days." "That's not how it works." "That's exactly how it works. You hired competent people. Let them be competent." "And if something goes wrong?" "It will. Something always goes wrong. The question is, do you want it to go wrong while you're working non-stop and missing your children's childhood? Or do you want it to go wrong while you're making memories with them?" Michael fell silent. Sarah continued. "Your boys are 5 years old. In 10 years, they'll be teenagers who won't want to spend time with their dad. In 15 years, they'll be adults with their own lives. You have a very small window to be present in their upbringing. Don't waste it." That night, Michael lay awake thinking. Sarah was right about the window of opportunity. He barely remembered special moments with his own father, precisely because his father never stopped working. The next morning, he did something he'd never done before. He called his project manager and said he'd be unavailable from Friday night until Monday morning. "Any emergency, sir?" the employee asked, concerned. "No. A priority." When he told the boys at lunch, their reaction was disbelief. 3 whole days, Cole?" asked Nathan. "No work?" added Ethan. "No phone calls?" asked William. 3 whole days, no work, no phone calls, just me and you guys." "And what are we going to do?" asked Ethan, genuinely curious. Michael realized he had no idea. When was the last time he'd planned activities just for fun? "What would you like to do?" "Zoo," shouted William. "Park," said Nathan. "Ice cream," added Ethan. "We can do all of that," said Michael, surprised at his own answer. "How about we make a list?" The next 3 days were a revelation. Michael discovered his children were funny, smart, curious, and affectionate when they weren't competing for attention. They did everything on the list, and many more spontaneous things. At the zoo, Ethan showed surprising knowledge about animals. At the park, Nathan displayed athletic skills Michael didn't even know existed. William revealed a talent for making friends, chatting with other kids, and even adults. "How did I not know these things about you?" Michael asked on Sunday evening. "Because you were never here to see it," Nathan replied with the brutal honesty of children. The remark stung, but it was true. Michael wasn't just losing time with his children, he was losing the children themselves, their personalities, talents, and dreams. "That's going to change," he promised. "I'll be around more." "Do you really mean it?" Ethan asked. "I do," and he kept his word. Not overnight and not without struggles, but gradually, Michael reorganized his priorities. He delegated more responsibilities, hired an assistant, and set fixed hours to be home. Sarah watched the changes with quiet satisfaction. Her strategy was working. She wasn't just taking care of the kids, she was repairing a family. But then something unexpected happened, testing everything they had built. It was a Tuesday morning when Michael got a call that changed everything. On the other end, a familiar and not entirely welcome voice. "Michael, it's Deborah." Deborah was Jennifer's mother. In the 2 years since her daughter's passing, she had distanced herself from the family, claiming that seeing her grandchildren reminded her too much of her loss. Her calls were rare and usually tense. "Hi, Deborah. How are you? I need to talk to you about the boys." Her serious tone alarmed him. "What about the boys?" "I heard you hired a new nanny." "Yes, Sarah. She's been with us for a month." "Why?" "Michael, don't you think it's time to consider more permanent solutions for the children?" "What do you mean, permanent solutions?" "You work too much. You're always traveling. You're overwhelmed. Richard and I have been talking. We could raise the boys." Michael nearly dropped the phone. "What?" "We're retired. We have time. We're financially stable. The boys are our only grandchildren. Jennifer would have wanted them raised by family. They are being raised by family, by me." "Michael, be realistic. You hire one stranger after another to look after your kids while you work. That's no life for children. They need stability, constant attention, and they have that now. Until the next nanny leaves, how many has it been? 10, 12? Sarah is different." "That's what you said about the last one, and the one before." "Michael, you're a good man, but you weren't meant to be a single father. Let us take the boys. You can visit them whenever you want." Michael felt his blood boil. "They're my children, Deborah. Mine. And they were my daughters too. I have rights here. You chose to distance yourself. You didn't want to see your grandchildren because it was too painful. Now you want to take them from me. It's not taking them. It's offering them a better life. A stable one with grandparents who have time for them. This conversation is over. Michael, think carefully. I can take this to court if I have to, but I'd rather keep it friendly." The line went silent. Michael stared at the phone, hands shaking. A legal threat. Was Deborah really threatening to sue for custody? He immediately called his lawyer. "Daniel, I need to talk to you urgently about custody of my kids." "Is there a problem?" "My mother-in-law is threatening to go to court for custody." "On what grounds?" "Claims I can't take care of them because I work too much and keep changing nannies." "Is it true?" "It was. But it's changed. I've had a new nanny for a month, and it's working perfectly." "Only a month? Michael, that's not much time to prove stability." "What are you saying?" "That if she actually files for custody, 1 month of stability might not be enough for a judge, especially if she can prove prior neglect." Michael felt the world crashing down. "What do I do?" "First, breathe. Second, document everything. Schedules, activities, the nanny's involvement with the kids, your own involvement. Third, don't give her any reasons to use against you." "What kind of reasons?" "Don't leave the kids alone with the nanny for long periods. Don't travel for work without them. Don't do anything that could be seen as an absent father." Michael hung up more distressed than before. He was finally building a healthy relationship with his children, and now it was under threat. When he got home for lunch, Sarah immediately noticed something was wrong. "Mr. Anderson? Did something happen?" Michael looked at his kids playing in the garden and decided he couldn't talk in front of them. "Sarah, can we speak privately after they go to bed?" "Of course." "But are you all right?" "I'm fine. It's just work stuff." But he wasn't fine. During lunch, he barely managed to engage in the boys' excited chatter about the sprouting bean plants. His mind was racing, imagining scenarios where he'd lose custody. That night, after the kids were asleep, Michael told Sarah everything. She listened silently, her expression growing more serious. "And the lawyer said 1 month of stability might not be enough?" she asked when he finished. "He did, and that I need to prove I'm a present and responsible father." "But you are now. 2 months ago I wasn't. What if she brings up evidence from the last 2 years?" Sarah grew thoughtful. "Mr. Anderson, can I ask you something? Why did Mrs. Henderson distance herself from the family after Jennifer passed?" She said seeing the boys reminded her too much of her daughter, that it was too painful. And now she suddenly wants custody? Apparently. That doesn't make sense. People don't spend 2 years avoiding kids because they're too painful and then decide to raise them. There's something else going on. Like what? I don't know, but I suggest you find out. Michael spent the night wide awake, thinking. Sarah was right. Deborah's behavior didn't add up. Why would she suddenly want custody of kids she avoided? The next day, he decided to make some calls. First, to Jennifer's sister, Amanda. "Amanda, I need to ask you something. Has your mother mentioned anything to you about wanting custody of the boys?" "What? No. Why would she want that?" "She called me yesterday saying she wants to raise them." "Michael, that's crazy. Mom can barely take care of herself. She started having memory issues last year." Michael paused. "Memory issues?" "Yes. Nothing too serious yet, but she's been forgetting things, mixing up dates. Dad's worried." "And why didn't she tell me?" "You know how proud she is. She won't admit she's getting older." "Then why would she want custody of the boys?" "I don't know, but I can find out. Let me talk to Dad." An hour later, Amanda called back with disturbing news. "Michael, I found out what's going on. Mom isn't doing well financially." "What do you mean?" "She and Dad made some bad investments last year, lost a good chunk of their savings. Dad's trying to fix it, but they're struggling." "And what does that have to do with the boys?" "Jennifer left money for the boys, didn't she? An account they can only access when they turn 18, Michael confirmed. Jennifer had left a significant life insurance sum for each child. If Mom had custody, she'd be the legal guardian managing that money. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. "Are you saying your mother wants custody of my children to get access to their money?" "I don't know. But the timing is very suspicious. 2 years avoiding the kids' financial struggles, and suddenly she wants to raise them." Michael hung up, feeling sick. The possibility that someone would use his children for money was nauseating. That night, he told Sarah everything. "That explains a lot," she said, "but it also makes the situation more delicate." "Why?" "Because if it's true, she's desperate. Desperate people do extreme things." "Like what?" "Like fabricating or exaggerating evidence of parental neglect." The possibility hadn't occurred to Michael. "Do you think she'd do that?" "I don't know, but I suggest you prepare for anything." "How?" "By documenting our routine, taking family photos, recording the boys' statements about how they feel here, and maybe considering some more permanent changes." "What kind of changes?" Sarah hesitated. "Have you thought about formalizing my position here?" "What do you mean, formalizing?" "A long-term contract, something that shows stability to a judge, and maybe..." She paused again. "Maybe I should officially live here." Michael blinked. "Live here?" "I practically already do. I leave at 9 at night and come back at 7 in the morning. It'd be more efficient if I stayed. And it would show any judge that the children have constant, stable care." The suggestion made practical sense, but Michael felt something odd in his chest. The idea of Sarah living permanently in the house stirred feelings he wasn't ready to examine. "You'd do that? For the boys, of course. And for you, wouldn't it be too much of a sacrifice?" "Mr. Anderson, these boys have become my priority. Protecting them from a potentially harmful situation isn't a sacrifice, it's responsibility." Michael nodded, but something in her answer bothered him. "For the boys, responsibility." They were noble reasons, but he caught himself wishing there was something more personal in her decision. The next day, they implemented immediate changes. Sarah brought her personal belongings and officially settled into the guest room. Michael drew up a formal 2-year contract with her. They began meticulously documenting the children's routine. But 3 days later, the situation escalated unexpectedly. Michael was at the office when he got a call from the boys' school. "Mr. Anderson, this is Principal Barbara. I need to inform you that a woman came here today trying to pick up Ethan, Nathan, and William." "What do you mean, trying to pick them up?" "She said she was their grandmother and had permission to take them. But since only you and Mrs. Sarah are on the authorized list, we didn't allow it." "Who was it?" "She said her name was Deborah. She claimed there was a misunderstanding and that you had approved it." Michael's blood ran cold. "Did she leave?" "Yes, but she was very upset. Said she'd return with documents proving her rights." "Barbara, please tighten security. Don't let anyone but me or Sarah take the children, no matter what documents they show." "I've already taken care of it." "But Mr. Anderson, if there's a legal dispute involving the children, you might want to speak to a lawyer." Michael called Sarah immediately. "Sarah, you need to pick up the boys from school now. Deborah tried to take them." "What?" "I'm on my way." "Then go straight home. Don't stop anywhere." "Michael, what's going on?" It was the first time she'd called him by his name, and he noticed even in the middle of the crisis. "It's escalating. She's desperate." When Sarah arrived home with the boys, Michael was already there waiting. The children immediately sensed something was wrong. "Why did you pick us up early?" Nathan asked. "And why is Daddy home?" Ethan added. "Is it because Grandma Deborah came to school?" William asked, surprising everyone. Michael and Sarah exchanged glances. "You saw Grandma Deborah at school?" Michael asked gently. "Yes. She was talking to Aunt Barbara and looked really angry." "Did she speak to you?" "No, but I saw her from the classroom window, or from the..." "Why was she mad?" Michael knelt to his children's level. "Kids, I need to talk to you about something important." The three sat on the couch with serious expressions. Sarah stood nearby, offering silent support. "Grandma Deborah wants you to live with her and Grandpa Richard." "Why?" Ethan asked. "She thinks it would be better for you." "But we don't want to," Nathan said immediately. "We want to stay here with you and Sarah," William added. "I know, and I want you here too. But sometimes adults need to talk to other adults, like judges, to decide these things." "What's a judge?" Ethan asked. "A person who helps decide what's best when adults can't agree on their own." "What if the judge says we have to live with Grandma?" Nathan asked, tears in his eyes. Michael's heart clenched. "I'll do everything I can to stop that, but I need you to help me by being honest about how you feel here, okay?" "We're happy here," William said simply. "Very happy," Ethan confirmed. "And Sarah takes really good care of us," Nathan added. "And you're being a really good dad now," Ethan said. "You eat lunch with us and play with us and don't yell anymore." The children's honesty moved Michael deeply. They could see and put into words changes he was still processing. "Thank you for telling me that. It means a lot to me." That night, after the kids were asleep, Michael and Sarah sat down to plan their defense. "We need to be ready for anything," Michael said. "Daniel warned me she might file the request this week. And what are our strengths? The stable routine we've built, my more consistent presence, the fact the kids are clearly happy and well cared for." "And the weaknesses?" Michael sighed. "The 2 years of instability before, the fact we went through 12 nannies in 6 months, my excessive absence at work. That's in the past. But it left evidence. School reports about behavioral issues, neighbor complaints, the nannies who quit." "Michael," Sarah said softly, "you're punishing yourself for past mistakes. But you've changed. Your kids know it. I know it. Anyone who sees us now knows it. But will it be enough for a judge? It has to be, because the alternative is unacceptable." Michael looked at her. There was a fierce determination in her eyes he'd never seen before. "Sarah, you don't have to get involved in this. It's not your legal responsibility. It's my moral responsibility. I love these kids. They're not just my job. They're my family now. And no one's going to take them from where they're happy and loved." Her words struck Michael unexpectedly. There was passion, protectiveness, and something that sounded like maternal love in her voice. Even if it means a long, complicated legal battle. Especially then, these kids already lost one mother. They won't lose a father and a home too. Not if I can help it. Michael felt something shift in his chest. Gratitude, admiration, and something deeper he wasn't ready to name. 2 days later, the notice arrived. Deborah had officially filed for custody of the triplets, citing paternal neglect and an unstable home environment. The legal battle had begun. The attorney Robert Thompson arrived at the Anderson residence the following morning with a folder full of documents and a grave expression. "Michael, the situation is more serious than we anticipated," he said, sitting in the living room where Michael and Sarah were waiting. "Deborah hired Gregory Hamilton." "Is that bad?" asked Sarah. "Gregory specializes in family law and has a reputation for being ruthless. He doesn't take cases he doesn't believe he can win." Michael felt his stomach tighten. "What does that mean?" "It means they have what they consider strong evidence. And based on what's written here," Robert showed the petition, "they've done their homework." "What kind of evidence?" Robert opened the document and began reading. Statements from former nannies reporting the children's aggressive behavior, lack of paternal supervision, instances of property destruction, complaints from school about behavioral issues. "But all that has changed," Michael protested. "For how long?" 2 months. "Michael, to a judge, 2 months is the blink of an eye, especially compared to 2 years of documented problems." Sarah leaned forward. "And what's their defense for wanting custody now, after 2 years of absence?" Robert flipped through a few pages. "They claim they were pushed away by Michael himself, that he was always hostile to their presence in the grandchildren's lives. They say they tried to help multiple times, but were rejected." "That's a lie," Michael exploded. "They're the ones who distanced themselves." "Do you have proof of that?" Michael thought. "Declined calls, refused invitations?" "Not much concrete evidence. It was more conversations." "Then it'll be their word against yours. And they have the advantage of being the grandparents who want to rescue their grandchildren from neglect. What do we do?" "First, we need to document everything that's changed. The children's routine, your involvement, the stability Sarah has brought. Second, we need witnesses, teachers, neighbors, anyone who can attest to the positive changes." "And third?" Sarah asked. "Third, we need to find out why they really want custody. If we can prove improper motives." "We already know," Michael interrupted, then explained Deborah and Richard's financial struggles. Robert brightened. "That's excellent. If we can prove their motivation is financial, their case falls apart. But we need solid evidence." "How?" "Leave it to me. I have a private investigator who can help." When Robert left, Michael felt slightly more hopeful, but still uneasy. Sarah noticed his distress. "Michael, everything will work out." "How can you be so sure?" "Because the truth is on our side. And the truth is these children are happy here, loved here, and growing up in a healthy environment. But what if that's not enough?" Sarah took his hand, surprising them both with the intimacy of the gesture. "Then we'll make it enough. We'll show any judge that this family works, that these boys have everything they need here." Michael looked at her hand over his. It was the first time someone had touched him comfortingly since Jennifer. The simple gesture stirred a warmth he hadn't felt in years. "Sarah," he began, but was interrupted by the boys' shouts as they arrived home from school. "Dad! Sarah!" Ethan ran into the room. "The teacher said you wanted to talk to her." Michael quickly composed himself. So over lunch, they explained to the boys that some people would be asking questions about what it was like living there, and that it was important to be honest. "What kind of questions?" Nathan wanted to know. "About how you feel here, if you like your routine, if you feel safe and happy," Sarah explained. "That's easy," William said. "We're really happy." "What if they ask about before, when Sarah wasn't here?" Ethan asked. Michael hesitated. "I didn't want them to lie, but I also didn't want them to condemn themselves. You can tell the truth that it was harder before, but now it's much better." "Can I say you didn't know how to play with us, but that you learned?" asked Nathan. The innocent question made Michael smile despite the situation. "Yes, you can. That afternoon, the boys' teacher, Amanda Wilson, came to the house for an informal chat that Robert had suggested. "Honestly," she said, "the change in the boys over the last 2 months is remarkable. They used to arrive at school agitated, constantly fighting, struggling to focus. Now they're completely different children." "In what way?" asked Michael. "Calmer, more cooperative, much happier. Ethan stopped throwing tantrums during activities. Nathan no longer provokes his classmates. William doesn't cry every day asking to go home anymore." "They did that?" Michael hadn't known about these behaviors. "They did. But what's most striking is how they talk about home now. Before, when we asked about family, they'd go quiet or only mention their dad, who worked a lot. Now they talk about having lunch together, playing, going on outings, and they speak of Sarah with such affection." "What do you mean?" "Just yesterday, during a family activity, William drew all 4 of you together and said, 'This is my happy family.' It was very touching." Michael felt his eyes well up. "They said, 'Happy family.'" "They did. And when I asked if it had always been like that, Nathan explained that before Daddy was very sad and busy, but now you do things together and laugh a lot." The teacher agreed to write a detailed report on the boys' behavioral changes. It was a small but important victory. In the following days, Michael and Sarah worked tirelessly to build their defense case. They photographed everyday moments, recorded videos of the children speaking spontaneously about how they felt at home, and gathered statements from neighbors who'd noticed the positive changes. Mrs. Henderson, the elderly neighbor next door, was especially helpful. "Before," she told Robert's investigator, "I heard constant yelling, children crying, nannies quitting, utter chaos. Now, all I hear is laughter, and I see Michael coming home for lunch, playing with the boys in the yard on weekends. He's a different man." "And the current caregiver?" the investigator asked. "Sarah is an angel, patient, loving, but firm when needed. The children respect and adore her. She's brought peace to that house." But while they gathered positive evidence, the opposing side wasn't idle either. A week later, Michael got a disturbing call from Robert. "Michael, we have a problem. They've obtained a very damaging statement." "From whom?" "Jessica Parker, the nanny who left 3 months before Sarah arrived." Michael remembered her. She'd lasted only 2 weeks before quitting abruptly. "What did she say?" "That you came home drunk, left the children alone while traveling for work, that they had constant nightmares and self-destructive behavior." "That's a lie. I never came home drunk." "She has photos of you asleep on the couch one Sunday afternoon, with beer bottles on the table." Michael remembered. It had been a particularly hard day right after the 2nd anniversary of Jennifer's passing. He'd had a few beers and dozed off watching TV while the kids played. Nothing dramatic, but in the hands of a skilled lawyer. And the trips. She mentions a 3-day trip to Miami where you left the children alone with her, no additional supervision. It was work, and she was the nanny. What's the point of a nanny if not to care for the kids when the father has to travel? "Michael, calm down. I know it's frustrating, but we need to handle this strategically." "How?" "First, we'll question her credibility. Why did she leave? Was there an incident? Second, we'll contrast it with the current situation. Have you traveled at all since Sarah arrived?" "No. I cancelled all my trips." "Good. That shows a change in behavior." But Michael was shaken. It was painful to see the worst moments of his life being used against him. Even more painful because deep down, he knew some of the criticism was valid. He hadn't been the best father in the first 2 years after losing Jennifer. Sarah noticed his emotional state that evening. "Michael, what's going on?" He told her about Deborah's testimony. "Sarah, what if they're right? What if I really was neglectful? What if my children were suffering and I didn't even notice?" "Michael, look at me," she said firmly. "You were doing the best you could with the tools you had at the time. Losing a wife is devastating. Raising 3 children alone is terrifying. You made mistakes, yes, but you learned from them and changed. But what if it's not enough? It will be. You know why? Because your children love you, because they trust you, because when they're asked if they're happy here, they say yes without hesitation. That's worth more than any negative testimony. What if the judge doesn't see it that way?" Sarah was silent for a moment. "Then we'll make them see." We'll show this family's transformation so clearly it'll be impossible to ignore. How? Leave it to me. I have an idea. The next day, Sarah did something unexpected. She called the school and arranged a meeting with all the teachers and staff who knew the boys. What for? Michael asked. So they can see with their own eyes how the children interact with us now. Not just written statements, but direct observation. The meeting was scheduled for Friday. Michael was nervous, but Sarah seemed confident. Do the kids know they'll have to perform? He asked. No, they'll just be themselves. That's what we want to show. A family functioning naturally. On the morning of the meeting, Michael cancelled all his work commitments. He arrived at the school at noon and found Sarah in the courtyard with the 3 boys, who had no idea what was happening. "Daddy!" William shouted, running to hug him. "You came for lunch at school." "I did. How about we eat together today?" Teachers and staff discreetly observed as the family of 4 sat in the cafeteria. The interaction was natural, affectionate, normal. Michael helped William open his juice. Sarah wiped Ethan's mouth. Nathan talked about his gym class. "Daddy, can you stay for the theater presentation?" Ethan asked. "What presentation?" "We practiced a play about animals. I'm the lion." Michael glanced at Sarah, who nodded subtly. "Of course I can stay." During the performance, Michael proudly filmed as Ethan dramatically roared like a lion, Nathan gracefully leaped like a dolphin, and William swayed majestically like an elephant. At the end, all 3 ran to hug him and Sarah. "You were amazing," Michael said, genuinely proud. "Sarah helped us rehearse at home," Nathan shared. "And can you come to the next show too?" William asked. "I'll try to come to every show from now on," Michael promised. Principal Jessica, who had been watching everything, approached afterward. "Mr. Anderson, it's wonderful to see how happy and secure your children are. The difference is remarkable." "Thank you. Sarah deserves the credit." "You both do. It's obvious this is a partnership that works very well for the children." The word partnership echoed in Michael's mind. That's what they had become, without him even realizing it. Not just employer and employee, but partners in raising the boys. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. When they returned home, Michael felt more optimistic. But 3 days later, he received a call that changed everything again. "Michael, it's Amanda." Jennifer's sister was crying. "Amanda, what happened?" "It's about Mum. She was hospitalized." "What? Why?" "She had a severe episode of confusion. She didn't recognize Dad for hours, became disoriented, aggressive. The doctors say her dementia is progressing faster than they expected." Michael was stunned. "But she filed for custody of the boys 2 weeks ago." "I know. Michael, I didn't know about the lawsuit until this morning. Dad told me everything. He's desperate." "What do you mean?" "Mum hid his memory problems from him. She convinced him to sign the lawyer's papers, saying it was to protect the grandchildren. Dad didn't realize it was a custody case." "And the lawyer? Did he know about the memory issues?" "We don't know. But Michael, Mum is in really bad shape. She might not even be legally competent to pursue a lawsuit." Michael immediately called Daniel. "Daniel, Deborah was hospitalized with dementia. It seems she hid the problem from her husband and possibly the lawyer. That changes everything. If we can prove she wasn't mentally competent when she filed the case gets dismissed. Possibly, but we need to act fast. Her husband could take over the case, or the lawyer might argue she was lucid when she started it." "What do we do?" "Let's go to the hospital. I need medical reports, her history, any evidence that her incapacity isn't recent." At the hospital, Michael found Richard, his father-in-law, emotionally shattered. "Michael, forgive me," the older man said with tears in his eyes. "I didn't know what I was signing. Deborah told me it was to ensure the boys would be safe if anything happened to you." "Richard, do you really want custody of my children?" "No. God forbid. I can barely take care of her, let alone 3 kids. I didn't even know that's what she was doing." "And your financial situation?" Richard sighed. "It's true, we've been struggling. We lost money on bad investments. But Michael, I would never touch the children's money. Never. Michael believed him. Richard was a simple, honest man, clearly manipulated by his sick wife. Would you be willing to sign a document withdrawing the custody request? Of course. In fact, I'd like to formally apologize. And maybe we can be family again. I miss my grandchildren. Michael's heart ached. Of course, Richard. The kids miss their grandparents too. Daniel obtained medical reports proving Deborah's dementia had begun months before the lawsuit was filed. The opposing lawyer, Gregory Hamilton, when confronted with the evidence, dropped the case without objection. He doesn't want to risk his reputation by being accused of exploiting someone with dementia, Daniel explained. Michael felt immense relief, but also sadness for Deborah's condition. After all, she was Jennifer's mother and his children's grandmother. That night, he gathered the boys to explain the situation. "Grandma Deborah is sick," he said gently. "She gets confused sometimes and forgets things. That's why she wanted you to live with her. She wasn't understanding things clearly." "Will she get better?" Nathan asked. "We don't know, but we'll visit her and take care of her because she's family." "What about Grandpa Richard?" Ethan wanted to know. "Grandpa Richard will visit you whenever he wants. He wants to see how you're growing up." "Like when Mom used to visit Grandma and Grandpa when she was little?" asked William. "Exactly like that." The boys were satisfied with the explanation. To them, the solution made sense. Family takes care of family, but everyone lives where they're happiest. 2 weeks later, with the legal threat finally behind them, Michael could finally relax. But that's when he realized his relationship with Sarah had changed during the crisis. They'd become a real team, making important decisions together, supporting each other, defending the family they'd built. It was impossible to ignore that she'd become much more than an employee. One evening after the children had fallen asleep, Michael decided to bring it up. "Sarah, I need to thank you for everything you did during this situation. You don't have to thank me. I did what anyone would do for family." "Family," Michael repeated the word. "It's interesting you'd use that word." "Why?" "Because that's exactly how I feel, like you're part of our family." Sarah fell silent, avoiding his gaze. "Does that bother you?" Michael asked. "No, but it confuses me." "Why?" "Because I don't know where I stand here. Am I an employee, a friend? Am I—" "What?" Michael moved closer to her. "What would you like to be?" "Michael, I can't answer that." "Why not?" "Because the children need stability, and if I answer wrong, if it complicates things between us, they're the ones who'll suffer." Michael understood her concern, but also felt frustration. What if it doesn't complicate things? What if it makes everything even better? And what if it doesn't? It was a standoff. Both felt something growing between them, but both prioritized the children's well-being over their own feelings. "Sarah, can I ask you an honest question?" "Of course." "Do you feel anything for me, beyond professional respect?" She stayed silent so long Michael thought she wouldn't answer. "I do," she finally said, "and it scares me." "Why?" "Because I can't afford to get emotionally involved with another man and have my heart broken again, and especially not with you, because it would also mean losing those children I love so much." Michael understood. She'd lost a child and was now afraid of growing too attached to a new family she might lose. "What if I promised that would never happen?" "You can't promise that, no one can, life's unpredictable. But we could try, we could see where it takes us." "Michael," she hesitated, "I need time to think." "How much time?" "I don't know, just let things stay as they are for now, for the children's sake." Michael agreed, but both knew something had shifted between them. There was a new tension in the air, a mutual awareness that hadn't been there before. In the days that followed, they tried to maintain normality, but small moments revealed the change. Their hands brushed when passing dishes at dinner. Glances lingered longer than necessary. Conversations about the children carried personal undertones. Even the boys began to notice. "Why do you and Sarah keep looking at each other?" Ethan asked during lunch. "We don't," Michael denied quickly. "Yes, you do," Nathan insisted, and then you both turn red. "And smile like Emma's parents at school," William added. "They got married last month." Michael nearly choked on his food. Who said anything about marriage? No one, Ethan said. But it'd be cool. Why? Because then Sarah would really be our mom, William explained. And you'd like that? Of course, all three chimed in. Sarah already takes care of us like a mum, Nathan said. She just doesn't sleep in Dad's room like Mom used to. The innocent remark made Michael flush violently. Sarah, who had heard everything from the kitchen, appeared at the red door as flushed as a tomato. Who wants dessert? She asked, trying to change the subject. Me, shouted the boys, running to the kitchen. Michael and Sarah were left alone in the dining room, both embarrassed. Kids have a unique way of simplifying things, said Michael. Very unique, Sarah agreed. They're not wrong, you know. About what? About you already being like a mother to them. They love you that way. Michael. And I'm also learning to love you that way. The words slipped out before he could stop them. Sarah looked at him, surprised. What way? Like someone who's part of our family. Like someone I can't imagine our life without. Michael, don't say that. Why not? It's true. Because it makes everything more complicated. Or it makes everything simpler. Before she could respond, the boys came running back from the kitchen, interrupting the moment. But the conversation had planted a seed. In the following days, they both began to observe their family dynamic with new eyes. It was true that they functioned as a unit. They made decisions together, shared responsibilities naturally, supported each other. And the children clearly saw Sarah as a maternal figure. They ran to her when they got hurt, sought her lap when they were sad, shared secrets with her. One evening, Michael found Sarah crying silently in the kitchen. What happened? He asked, alarmed. Nothing. It's silly. Sarah, what is it? Today at the park, a mother asked if I was the triplets' mom, and for a second I automatically said yes. Then I had to correct myself and explain I was just the nanny. And that made you sad? It confused me, because for a moment I really felt like their mother, and that scared me. Michael sat beside her. Why did it scare you? Because I can't be their mother. They already had one, and I have no right to take that place. Sarah, look at me, he said softly. You're not taking anyone's place. You're creating your own. And that place is unique and important. But children have room in their hearts to love more than one person. Loving you doesn't diminish the love they have for Jennifer, and you being important to them doesn't disrespect her memory. How can you be sure? Because I feel the same way. Growing close to you doesn't lessen the love I had for Jennifer. It's different, but not lesser or worse. It's new. Sarah looked at him with tears in her eyes. Michael, I love you, he said gently. And it's not just gratitude or convenience. It's real love. Love for the amazing woman you are, for the mother you've become to my children, for the partner you've become to me. I love you too, she whispered. But I'm so afraid. Afraid of what? Of ruining everything. Of not being good enough. Of you all getting tired of me. Michael cupped her face in his hands. We'll never get tired of you. You've become essential to us. Not just useful or convenient. Essential. What if it doesn't work out? What if it does? It was the same question she'd asked him weeks ago, now turned around. Sarah smiled through her tears. You're using my own logic against me. I am. Is it working? Maybe. Michael leaned in and kissed her softly. It was a tender kiss, full of pent-up feeling and hope. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. Now what? Asked Sarah. Now we take it slow. We'll see how the kids feel about it. We'll build this together like we've built everything else. What if they don't approve? You saw how they reacted when they suggested we get married. I'm sure they'll be thrilled. And they were right. When they told the boys a few weeks later that they were dating, the reaction was pure joy. Finally, Ethan exclaimed, you took so long to realize you liked each other. Realize? What do you mean? Asked Michael. Come on, Dad. You looked at each other just like movie characters before they kiss, explained Nathan. And you smiled like fools whenever you talked about each other, added William. The children, as always, had noticed before the adults. The following months were a natural adjustment. Michael and Sarah didn't drastically change the household dynamic. They simply made official what was already there. They were a family. A year later, on a Sunday afternoon in the garden where it all began, Michael proposed. But it wasn't an intimate moment for just the two of them. He knelt with the three boys beside him, each holding a flower. "Sarah," he said, his voice trembling, "over the past year and a half, you didn't just become part of our family. You taught us how to be a family again. You brought love, patience, joy, and peace into our home. You became the mother my children needed and the partner I didn't know I was searching for." Ethan stepped forward. "And we want you to be our mom forever." Nathan handed her his flower. "Because you already take care of us like a mom." William, the youngest, whispered, "And because we love you so much." Michael opened a small box with a simple but beautiful ring. "Will you marry me? Will you be my wife, and officially the mother of our children?" Sarah was crying but smiling. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." The four of them hugged in the garden, laughing through tears of happiness. The flowers they had planted months earlier bloomed around them, perfect symbols of the growth and rebirth their family had experienced. The wedding was simple, held 6 months later in that same garden. The boys were the ring bearers. Richard walked Sarah down the aisle, since she had no close family, and even Deborah was there on one of her clearest days. During the ceremony, Michael couldn't help but think how unpredictable life was. 2 years ago, he was a lost man, an absent father, a broken family. Now he was surrounded by love, having found not just a new companion but a true life partner. Sarah, in her simple yet elegant dress, radiated happiness. She had arrived at that house as a temporary nanny and found her true calling, to be a mother, a wife, the heart of a family. The triplets, now 6, watched the ceremony with adorable seriousness, aware they were part of something very special. During the vows, Michael spoke not just to Sarah, but to the whole family. "Sarah, you taught me that sometimes the best things in life come disguised as temporary fixes. You came to care for my children for a few weeks and ended up healing our entire family. I promise to love you, respect you, and build with you the future our children deserve." Sarah, tears in her eyes, replied, "Michael, Ethan, Nathan, and William, you gave me a second chance at motherhood I never thought I'd have. I promise to care for this family with all the love in my heart, to honor Jennifer's memory by being the best mother I can be, and to build with you a life full of love, laughter, and special moments." When the officiant declared them husband and wife, the boys shouted "Hooray!" and ran to hug their parents. The photo of that moment, the 5 of them embracing, laughing, with petals falling around them, would become the family's favorite. The reception was small, but joyful. Friends, some of Michael's co-workers, the children's teachers, neighbors, everyone who had witnessed the family's transformation was there to celebrate. At dinner, the boys insisted on giving a speech. "We want to thank Sarah," said Ethan, speaking for all 3, "for being patient with us when we were rude. And for teaching Dad how to play," added Nathan. "And for making our home happy again," William finished. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Later, when the children were finally asleep and the guests had left, Michael and Sarah sat in the garden, still dressed in their wedding attire, gazing at the stars. "We did it," Michael said. "We really did." "Did what?" "Built a new family without erasing the old one, found love again without disrespecting the love that came before, gave the boys the stability they needed, and found our own happiness in the process," Sarah added. "Do you regret anything?" Michael asked. "Just one thing." "What?" "That it took me so long to realize I was in love with all 4 of you." Michael laughed. "Well, now we have the rest of our lives to make up for lost time." "The rest of our lives," Sarah repeated, savoring the words. "I like how that sounds." 5 years later, the Anderson Mitchell home, Sarah had kept her last name, but the children now had both, was a picture of happiness and stability. Michael had learned to balance work and family, becoming not just a successful businessman, but a present father and devoted husband. The triplets, now 11, were confident, affectionate, and well-adjusted. Ethan had developed a talent for music. Nathan excelled in sports, and William showed an aptitude for science. All maintained a good relationship with their grandfather, Richard, who visited them regularly. Sarah had not only become a mother to the boys, but also a mentor to other families in the neighborhood. She started a support group for single parents and caregivers, sharing the wisdom she'd gained on her own journey. One day, while organizing old photos, Ethan found one from the day Sarah had first arrived at their home. "Mom Sarah," he said. The boys called her that to distinguish her from Mom Jennifer in heaven. "Do you remember when you got here and we were making a mess?" "I do. You were testing to see if I'd leave like the others. And you didn't." "I didn't." "Why not?" Sarah thought about the question. "Because you needed someone who wouldn't leave. And I needed you too." "You needed us?" "Very much. You taught me that it's possible to love again after loss, that family isn't just who you're born with, but who chooses to stay." Ethan hugged her tightly. "I'm glad you chose to stay. I'm glad you let me." The end. So, what did you think of this story of love, resilience, and family? Let us know in the comments which part moved you the most. And tell us, do you believe happiness can be rebuilt after a great loss? Your opinion means a lot to us. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss other heartwarming stories. Thank you so much for joining us.